Hi and welcome to a new episode of Rated Dungeon. Today we're gonna talk about the different attack stats in the game. So for example, we have attack increase, multiply, the critical rate ones, the penetration power. We have the skill damage increase, the extra boss damage, and both of them have also this multiply variant. So it's not that easy to identify which one you should increase in order to increase your total damage. But before we start with the calculations, first of all we have to understand the two types of attacks we have in this game. So the first one is the basic attack. This is always the first skill here you choose. So these ones are the normal automatic attacks, so the auto attacks. Then you have three active skills. These ones are your active skills, and they need skill damage, or then they don't need it, but they use skill damage in order to increase their damage. So when we just jump into an adventure, we're gonna see right away the different types of attack. So for example here, my skills are off, and all the damage I'm doing here is simply through auto attacks. So this is the normal basic auto attack damage. When I press one of these buttons, using skills, and these skills use skill damage. And once, from time to time, you see some bigger enemies, and these enemies, they are bosses. So when we take a look at our stats, we see here we have where is it? Yeah, here is the skill damage. So the skill damage increased is used by skill. We have the extra boss damage. This one is used when you attack the bigger guys, the bigger mobs, the bosses. And then we have also the base attack damage increase. This one is simply this auto attacks. So in order to see how to maximize our overall damage, we're gonna jump into a calculation sheet. So what I have made is a simple damage calculator, in order that I can show you how these different types of damage attributes in the game work, and how they work with each other combined. So first of all, what we have here at the top, we have our two rings, our weapon. Then we can choose if we have a Bifrost item or not, because the Bifrost set gives us 10% increased damage per mythical item we have equipped. We have the attack increase and the attack multiply stat. We have the basic attack damage increase stat. We have the skill damage ones. We have the boss damage ones, and we have the critical rate ones. So here at the bottom, you see the final damage. So for example here, the basic attacks, these are the auto attacks on normal monsters, on boss, and the same one we have with the active skills. It is important to know all of these skills, they have their own damage values. So for example, skills with higher cooldowns will do more damage, skills with lower cooldowns will do less damage. So you won't do exactly these damage numbers, but it's, we need a number to know how to maximize the damage. So let's get started from the top again. So what I have done, I have put in here my damage values from the rings and from my weapon in billions. I've made here a small help table so you know what million, billion, and trillions are. So the next part is, to keep it simple, I have just put in here a n. So we are not using Bifrost now. And also an important information for you, if you want to use this simple damage calculator, I will leave a link down below in the description, and you can simply copy it and use it for yourself. So let's continue here. So the first important thing to understand is how these two values work with each other. So for example, if we get an item with 100% increased attack, our attack will increase by 100%. If we have 200%, it's gonna be 200%. Now when we get a multiply, so we have also this stat attack multiply, let's say we get a 50, then we have a total of 300, because this multiply stat increases our attack increase stat by 50%. So now we have a total here of 300. So let's say I'm gonna have 500, I have 750 in total. So the important part here is, since these two stats, I mean all of these stats here, the normal ones and the multiply, normal one, multiply, normal one, multiply, they are multiplicators. This means you will get the highest number if these two values are nearly the same. So for example, let's say these are our real life stats. And now you have an item and you can choose from multiply or increase. So since your multiply stat is lower, you have to choose the multiply stat because you will get more out of it. So I will just add 50 on it. Oops. And you see now we have 1000. If I would have added this 50 here on the attack one, we just would get 825%. So it's important to try to keep these two values nearly the same in order to get the highest amount of total increase. And this is important for the normal attack stats, for the skill damage increase, for the boss damage increase, and for the critical damage. So let's get to the next one. The next stat is basic attack damage. This one is only important for the basic attacks. So for example, if we have 100, we will do double the damage with our basic auto attacks. That's basically it with this stat. The next stat, skill damage increase. So for example, if we get here 200 and here 200, we have a total of 600. This means now we're gonna do with skills about 12 trillion damage. Doesn't matter now if it's on normal monster or on a boss. The next stat is the extra boss damage. So for example, again, 200. 200, this means when we attack a boss, a bigger unit, then we will do 12 trillion damage. And now the interesting part comes in. When we now also have skill damage, suddenly our damage gets much higher. So the interesting part here is between each of these attack stats, you have also a multiplier. This means you should not only try to have the same or nearly the same values between the normal ones and the multiplier inside a stat, but you should also try to have between the stats themselves a similar number. So for example, if your equipment would look like this, 3000 increased skill damage and extra boss damage would be 600, then you should try to get higher boss damage, because you will get more total damage out of it when you add to your total boss damage. For example, let's say you found a ring. You found two rings. One ring with 100% skill damage and one ring with 100% boss damage. If I would add it here, we will get about 80 trillion more damage. If I add it to the boss damage, you see here, it's a much higher number because your boss damage is lower, and since this is a multiplicator, we need to try to get the boss damage higher in order to get much more damage. And it works the same way with critical damage. So for example, here I have 80 critical rate, nothing changed because I have 0 increased critical damage. So for example, now I make here 200 and 200, that's a total of 600 critical damage increase. So this means we will have a third multiplier here at 80% of the time with 600% increased damage. So the aim should be, you should always try to have like skill damage, boss damage, total attack increase and crit damage on the same level. I know this is impossible, but when you're gonna look at your stats, you will always have one of these stats will be the lowest. So your aim should always be to push the lowest stat in order to increase your total amount of damage. So now I will jump back into the game. So now we are back in the game. So let's see if we can apply what we have learned. So this is my these are my attack values. Down here we have critical damage, that's about 1.9. And we have skill damage and boss damage. So as you can see, my multiply is much higher than the normal increase value. This means I should always aim for the normal values like skill damage increased, extra boss damage. The second thing you see here is that my skill damage increased is much lower than my extra boss damage increase. This means in order to increase my rift damage, I should aim for skill damage increase stats. And once my skill damage increase stats are higher than my boss damage, then again I can go back to boss damage and try to push my boss damage. So this is in general, this is it. There is only one more stat left, and this is penetration power. Penetration power is it's hard to calculate because penetration power is not dependent on your gear, but it's dependent on the enemy's defense. So for example, in tier dungeon, you're trying to have a high penetration power. The best would be beyond 80%, so about 90, 95 maybe, or even 100, because when the bosses have high defense, you will penetrate more of the defense and do more damage in general. So I hope you have learned something today and that you can adapt also this information to your builds. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, subscribe, and see you next week. Bye.